Good afternoon, everyone. Christos Xenofondos. I'm the Assistant Director for Administrative Services at the Rhode Island DOT, and also the Chair of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials Committee on Performance-Based Management, CPBM for short. So welcome to our final quarterly joint meeting of the AASHTO CPBM and the Transportation Performance Management Technical Service Program, TPM TSP for 2025. This is the opportunity that we have through the support of the TSP and Federal Highway to bring you these webinars. And if you are not a member of the TSP, please consider signing up. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. So we have many folks to thank as we begin our meeting today. I would like to thank our Vice Chair, Gene Wallace of Minnesota DOT, and our entire leadership group of the Committee on Performance-Based Management for your participation in today's meeting and all of the hard work that you do throughout the year to keep our committees and subcommittees going. AASHTO is a volunteer-based organization, as you know, and we all depend on the work of the volunteers and of our AASHTO staff in order to continue progressing things. So many thanks to Federal Highway, especially to Latoya Justin, Justin Clark, and Tim Lee Frierson, who are joining us today. A big thank you to Anna McLaughlin, John Dean, and Abigail, and the entire AASHTO team supporting the Committee on Performance-Based Management. Our quarterly meetings aim to share AASHTO and Committee on Performance-Based Management information and updates with our members, stakeholders, and partners. Before we begin, note that links to the recording and slides from today's web call will be posted on the TPM portal at tpmportal.com after today's call. And Lori has already provided the first link to everyone so that you can access the portal. We would ask that you please mute yourself during the meeting to avoid distractions. We have a packed agenda today, so for some of the topics, I will ask that you enter your questions in the chat. As time allows, our presenters will either respond to the questions live or in the chat. Entering your questions in the chat will help us organize that conversation. We have a fantastic program planned for today, and let's take a moment to review our agenda. Next slide, please. So in a few minutes, Latoya Johnson, team leader for the Transportation Asset Performance Team at Federal Highway, and Anna McLaughlin, the Program Director for Transportation Program Management at AASHTO, will provide updates on behalf of their agencies. We will then hear from our featured presenters, Shoshana Thompson of TRB, Anna Batista of High Street Consulting, and Francis Harrison of Spikepond Partners, who will each share a presentation related to our meeting theme, Performance Management in 2026 and beyond. Then we will transition into the business meeting of the Committee on Performance-Based Management with updates from the CPBM subcommittees, task forces, and working groups. And then we'll get into going straight into our agenda and start with updates from Federal Highway and AASHTO. First, we'll turn it over to Latoya to give the Federal Highway welcome and updates. Latoya?
Thanks, Christos, and hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Welcome. I'm supposed to say welcome, so welcome. I know we have a tight agenda, but many of you I met back in September at the committee meeting, so it's great to see you again. And for those of you who I did not get an opportunity to meet, just wanted to kind of reintroduce myself. As Christos said, Latoya Johnson. I'm the new team leader as of May for the Transportation Asset Performance Team here at Federal Highway. My paths have crossed with several folks because the last 8 years I was a team leader for the Pavement Design and Performance Team. So those of you who are like, I know her from somewhere, that's the somewhere that you probably know me from, but I have been with Federal Highway for over 20 years now, worked in a couple of divisions and a couple of headquarters offices, but really excited to participate as a part of this committee and the work that you guys have doing. I have been on the periphery for years, and so I'm really excited to work more closely. I just want to say and acknowledge, of course, that no secret, there have been many changes at Federal Highway over the past several months. We have had to pivot and reorganize and, really kind of figure out the best ways to re-engage. But I do want to commit to you that Federal Highway is still very much committed to the work that's being done as a part of the Performance-Based Management Committee, and really glad and happy that we're able to participate and contribute, and always looking for more ways and opportunities that we can support and engage and leverage the work that this committee is doing with the work that Federal Highway is doing. The one thing that I do want to point out is that 2026 is a very busy year for Federal Highway in the space of performance management and asset management. I know many of you are involved in probably preparing asset management plans for recertification. And of course, 2026 is a big reporting year for TPM, where both the full period reports as well as the baseline period reports are due, and we'll be doing significant progress determination. So, I just wanted to say that we are, really working hard to continue to support those efforts, to be here for the states and AASHTO and other entities that may have questions and needs in that space. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to myself and the team. We are around and we are available. But again, welcome. Looking forward to the discussions today and looking forward to continuing to work with you throughout December and, of course, into 2026. So happy holidays and all of those things to everyone if I don't talk to you between now and then. So thanks, Christos.
Thank you, Latoya, and greatly appreciate you being here in person and joining us in Baltimore, and hopefully you'll also be joining us in our next meetings as well. So any questions for Latoya, please enter them in the chat, and we'll turn it over to Anna McLaughlin to give us the AASHTO update. Anna?
Thanks, Christos, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I have some quick updates from AASHTO. First of all, I just want to mention that we have new leadership. At the AASHTO annual meeting last month in Salt Lake City, our board elected new president Russell McMurray, Commissioner of Georgia DOT, and Vice President Mark Williams, Executive Director of Texas DOT. Each year, our president chooses their emphasis areas that kind of guide AASHTO's work for the year. Commissioner McMurray will be focusing on reauthorization, project delivery, and safety. So we expect to have many more conversations on these emphasis areas during the upcoming year. Next, I just want to share that AASHTO's Committee on Data Management and Analytics is hosting Datapalooza next week. This is going to focus on innovative data solutions in the transportation space. And if folks have time, there are 2 tracks that will be particularly relevant to this group. There will be a track on asset management and a track on performance management. We will put a link for more information in the chat where you can see the full schedule and register if you are interested. Hope you can join us for that. Next, I just want to very quickly go through a quick summary of the 2025 TPM peer exchange on using performance management to address uncertainty. In conjunction with CPBM's annual meeting that we had in Baltimore in September, the peer exchange was hosted by FHWA and AASHTO's Performance Management TSP, organized by Spy Pond Partners, and I just really want to give a big shout out and thank you to Lori Richter for all the great work she did pulling that together. Resources, including the peer exchange report, which is pretty new, are available on the TPM portal. So again, we'll share a link to that. Next slide, there was a one-day form. This just kind of overall for the peer exchange, this was a one-day forum that focused on applying TPM during disruptions. The goal was to enhance TPM methods, foster collaboration, and promote innovation. The peer exchange included a keynote by Kristen White of Google Public Sector, a leadership panel, education sessions, tabletop exercises, and peer sharing. Spy Pond Partners, I think next slide. Spy Pond Partners covered different types of uncertainty. So we kind of set the stage with looking at fiscal uncertainty, technological, socio-political, organizational, and environmental. The key strategies that were discussed included contingency planning, failure analysis, and change management. We also had a leadership panel that emphasized collaboration and adaptability in current performance management practices. Next slide, Maryland DOT State Highway Administration presented on combining data management with performance management. Kristen White, the transportation industry executive at Google, stressed outcome-focused approaches and innovative data methods. And participants completed group exercises identifying uncertainties and then developing performance management strategies for those uncertainties. Next slide, the participants learned techniques for communicating uncertainty, transparency, regular updates, clear messaging, visuals. These are all kind of the important factors to remember. The peer exchange concluded with a discussion on state DOT challenges and strategies. And overall, the key takeaways was that effective communication of uncertainty is really critical for TPM success. Again, super quick overview, but there are a lot of good resources from the peer exchange available on the portal if you kind of want to dive deeper into the details that we covered in Baltimore. So thank you for giving me that time to kind of give an update on that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Christos to introduce our first featured speaker. Thanks, Christos.
Thank you so much, Latoya and Anna. And again, if you have questions for either Latoya or Anna, just please enter them in the chat. So we're going to now transition to our feature presentations for today, starting with Shoshana Thompson from Senior Program Officer at the Transportation Research Board, with what to expect from the upcoming TRB annual meeting in January through a performance management lens. Shoshana?
Sure. Thank you, Christos, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you all. Let me just pull up my presentation here. Thank you, Christos and team, for inviting me and allowing me to share with you all today. As Christos mentioned, my name is Shoshana Thompson, and I'm a Senior Program Officer at TRB. I'm with the Technical Activities Division. So I am going to talk about TRB annual meeting that's coming up next month. I can't believe it's almost already here. It's coming up, but before I jump into annual meeting, I just wanted to provide some context so that you can see how our committees and annual meeting and the Technical Activities Division all fit together. So as I mentioned, I work in TAD. Whenever I say TAD, I'm talking about the Technical Activities Division. And I know that you all already know this, but TRB is not its own entity, but we're actually a program unit of the National Academies. And even within TRB, TAD is not the only unit in TRB. We have three distinct divisions in TRB. So there's the Technical Activities Division, TAD. We also have our Cooperative Research Program Division, which you all are probably familiar with. That's the division that does our cooperative research program. So NCHRP, TCRP, ACRP, all the CRPs. And then we have our Consensus and Advisory Studies Division. So all three divisions make up what we come to know as TRB. And the role of TAD is really to put on activities that essentially provide a forum for experts from different sectors to come together and discuss and identify transportation challenges and opportunities to contribute to the larger picture of advancing transportation goals. So we engage experts from the public sector, private sector, and academia, and we try to ensure that we have all three perspectives at the table, especially in our committee meetings. And the majority of the work that we do in TAD, actually all of the work that we do in TAD, contributes to carrying out our commitments that are outlined in the core program for our sponsors. So our sponsors fund us to implement the core program. And those are the activities that you see listed here. So we do the annual meeting every January in Washington, D.C. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We have several smaller, more focused conferences each year. We're currently revamping how we approach conferences. So moving forward, you'll see a fewer number of conferences during the summer, but on broader themes, but more to come on that. We also have a webinar program. This webinar program offers webinars throughout the year on a wide range of topics, and you can submit a webinar proposal. There are generally quarterly deadlines for when you can submit your proposal. And then if your proposal is accepted, your webinar is scheduled for the next quarter. And these webinars are great as you can get professional development hours for these webinars. So I encourage you to check out our webinar programs if you have not yet attended one or been a speaker at one. I know that many of you have been a speaker on one of our webinars. We also have our transportation research record and other publications. We do have our research needs statements. We have an RNS database that committees can contribute to. And a part of our core program also have us visiting our state DOT sponsors throughout the year. So SPOs, like myself, we go on a visit to different state DOTs, and DOTs can select whether they want to have an in-person visit or a virtual visit. So that those are just some of the things that we do a part of the core program. So TAD, a lot of people think of the annual meeting when they think of TAD, but there's a lot more happening in the technical activities division. And so I just wanted to highlight that, to provide some context before I move to talking about our committees. So we have our standing technical committees that are really important in carrying out the core program work. So as most of you know, we did do a restructuring of our committees a few months ago, and the new committees came into effect. They came live on August 16th. And so we went from having 177 committees, and we now have 100 committees. And on the next slide, I'll show you a chart that has the groups of the committees. But as I mentioned, we do strive to have a balance of perspective at the table to contribute to the committee discussions. That's really critical that we have those perspectives represented. And the committee has a couple of key functions that I want to point out today. One is really to identify transportation challenges and opportunities. And once those have been identified, that is where the committee then moves to pulling the levers that they can. So the committee is really important for the content at the annual meeting. All of the content at the annual meeting is sponsored or co-sponsored by one of the committees. So once they've identified those challenges or those opportunities, they turn those into content, depending on what it is, for the annual meeting or for a conference or for a webinar. So committees can develop webinar proposals that then go on to be a part of the webinar program. So the committee is really critical, as I mentioned, in developing technical content. The committees also meet. So the one of the big meetings is in January at the annual meeting, but our committees also have meetings throughout the year, whether it's virtually. I know some committees in the old structure had in-person mid-year meetings, but it is expected that the committees meet to discuss research and innovation. And the committees also develop research needs statements. Again, once the committee has honed in on a topic, if there is a need for research, then the committee can form a little working group to then develop whatever they believe the research need is. So develop a research needs statement and then enter that into our database. And in this new structure, one of the things I want to highlight with the new structure is the role of the TRB staff has shifted somewhat. So staff are the ones now responsible for proposing the committee membership. This is different from the old structure where the chairs drove the membership process. Of course, they worked with staff, but in this new structure, it's a little more reverse. And as staff, we drive and select and propose the membership to TRB leadership for approval, and staff manage and oversee all committee activities. So previously, with the volume of committees, we had it was very difficult to attend every committee meeting at the annual meeting. So one change you'll see at this year's annual meeting is you'll see the TRB staff member actually participating and being present throughout the entire committee meeting. So many of you are familiar with seeing your TRB SPO just pop in to the committee meeting and give like an update, and then they have to like run to their next meeting because they had 3 or 4 committee meetings happening at the same time. So with a fewer number of committees, we've been able to now manage the schedule in a way that we'll be able to sit in all of the committee meetings. And the TRB staff is essentially there to ensure that the committees are, of course, moving along, progressing, but adhering to the guidance and the policies of the national academies. As I mentioned, TAD, TRB, we're not our own entity, but we do have to follow and abide by the policies of the national academies. So this is the slide I mentioned. So here I just wanted to show in the new structure, we now have 100 committees and 9 groups. And for some of the groups, there are sections. So for example, I manage the group on organizations, communities, and legal resources. So within that group, each of those things is a section. So not all groups have sections. Some have sections, some don't. With this new structure, most of the committee participation guidelines remain the same. So anyone can participate in one of our standing committees as a member or friend. So members are expected to contribute, and friends are welcome to contribute as much as they're able to. We still have the guideline of only one person per organization on a committee, so that hasn't changed. One of the things that has changed, though, is that with the fewer number of committees, we now only have one person. One person can only be on one committee. So in the previous structure, a person could be on 2 committees, but with fewer committee slots, each person can now be just on one committee. So again, I just wanted to show you guys the layout of how the 9 groups come into play. And then within the organizations, communities, and legal resources group, I want to highlight the organizations section because this is the one that more closely align with this AASHTO committee and some of the other subcommittees. So within the organizations section, we have 5 committees. So, and the codes are the AQB committees. So we have AQB 11 through 16. There's no 15. And as you can see, the range of topics here, I won't read them off, but the range of topics that cover the organizational, the depth and breadth of what is needed organizationally for transportation organizations. So these committees, as I mentioned, are closely aligned with the CPBM committee and its subcommittees. And so if you're not a member of one of these committees, I know many of you are members of one of these committees. If you're not a member, though, I encourage you to become a friend of one of these committees, to the ones that align with your area of expertise or your area of interest, so that you can be aware of what is happening with the committee. And I know that the committees previously, the previous versions of these committees had relationships with AASHTO committees, and we're still working through what that would look like in the future. All 100 committees are currently having their second meetings. So we had members-only meetings in September, and all 100 committees are having their second meeting with members and friends over last week, this week, and next week. So in these meetings, they are, beginning to discuss themes and potential priority areas for the committee to work on over the next few months. And so their next meeting will be at the annual meeting in January. So I will go through that quickly so that I don't run out of time. So the annual meeting is the largest gathering of transportation practitioners, researchers, and policymakers. So in the largest meeting in the transportation space, dedicated to innovation and improvement in all aspects of transportation. It's annually, it's in DC, Washington, DC in winter. Next year, it'll be January 11th through 15th. The next registration deadline, if you haven't yet registered, is the advance deadline that happens on January 8th. The early bird deadline has already passed. Each committee, I mentioned earlier that the committees are responsible for the content of the annual meeting. So each committee plans 2 lectern sessions. This year, we're able to have section level sessions. So each section will have 4 sessions. There are poster sessions and workshops as well. And there will be a broad range of topics being covered. The online program is available, so you can already check out the program online. All of the committees will have their committee meeting. One new thing for this annual meeting is that the committee meetings, all committee meetings will be 2 hours long. So some people may remember there were some committee meetings that were 4 hours, so that we no longer have that 4 hour block. All committee meetings will be 2 hours long, and the discussions will continue from the meetings that are happening now to discuss their strategic priorities and topic areas over the next few months. Quickly, this is.
Sorry, I hate to be the bad guy. It's Anna just interrupting, only because we have a very full day. I just 1 minute warning.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Oh, I'm
Thank you.
not able to see the chat, so I missed your thumbs up. Sorry. This is just an overlay of what the week looks like. The structure of the annual meeting has not changed. I did have slides with the um, Asset Performance and Risk Management Committee events. So their committee meeting will be on Monday, January 12th in the morning. And they have 2 workshops, one on Sunday, one on Thursday, and then their lectern and poster sessions are throughout the week. AQB 11, Strategic Management and Organizational Excellence. Their committee meeting is on Tuesday evening, 4 to 6 p.m. And then their events are there. And we have our 4 section level sections that are more cross-cutting as well. And those are mostly on Monday and one on Tuesday. So I'll stop sharing. And I think I did that in under a minute. Did I make it?
Thank you so much, Shoshana. That was really great. And, all of the slides will really be available as part of the TPM portal. So even the ones that you had to run through, the last minute will still be there. So again, if you have any questions for Shoshana, please enter them in the chat. And she'll respond. She'll help us respond over there.
Yeah.
So we'll now hear from Anna Batista. Anna is the principal at High Street Consulting Group, and she's also the principal investigator of the ongoing NCHRP 08168 analysis and assessment of the national performance management data. So Anna, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Christos, and thank you all for having me yet again. I presented in September on this project and was seeking input. Now we are nearing the end of this project, and I'm giving you a little preview of where we're landing on things, but we'll have a fuller webinar next week that I know many of you are planning to come to. So this is analysis and assessment of the national performance management data. What can we learn from the first performance period of TPM? We need to do that. Before we dive in, I just want to do the standard disclaimer. Everything you'll see here is the findings and opinions of the research team and led by myself, not NCHRP or TRB Federal Highways. It's still being reviewed by the panel for final publication and, of course, never a standard or regulation. So I just want to give you an overview of the project. So it was meant to look at the TPM data that we have from the first performance period, all of the national measures, and say, what can we say about performance across the country after doing this for a full cycle? So we have 2 components to doing the research. We looked at the data. We have a data analysis and assessment component. This was led by our data scientists and our data analysts, looking at performance and correlations with targets and other factors, as well as doing a deep dive into different performance data to do a metric assessment. But of course, that's combined. You can't just look at data to get the story with real world insights from many of you here on this call today. So we've had many conversations, interviews, focus groups, survey to get all of your input on how is TPM actually being rolled out and being practiced. And so together, blending that data piece and the practice piece and the kind of really what's happening on the ground to provide the insights on what we can say about this first performance period of our national performance program. So our final products for this research are turning into the national performance story, which I'll touch on here today and go in more detail next week. But that's really this kind of what are all the takeaways? What did we find? There's also a performance application tool. So many NCHRP based tools are Excel based, and that's so that they're freely accessible and usable. So that's what we have here. And it's a way to explore the data from the TPM data set in a way that's a little bit easier to answer questions, compare, and then we'll show you a little bit of that today. So I want to talk a little bit about the TPM analysis and assessment component. This one was finalized last month, so some of these findings were just nailed down. There were three components of doing the analysis part of this research. There's a performance analysis. Some of you have heard about some of this while we're doing the research, looking at is there any correlation between performance outcomes and then how ambitious targets were, how accurate targets were, or even whether target attainment. We know that targets, meeting targets does not mean, under TPM, does not mean that you made progress. So what are those correlations? What do those look like? There was a metric assessment doing a deep dive into segment level reliability and condition data to look at measure uniqueness, are any of them redundant, and metric formulation to answer the question, could there be improvements to the measures that are used in TPM? That was a big part of the purpose of the research. Finally, we did a key contributor analysis, that's what we call it, where we really just looked at statistical correlations with performance outcomes and exogenous factors like population or economic activity, trends, heating degree days, climate changes, and then internal agency actions, which were represented by agency spending in relevant performance areas. So those three analyses were what we did for that assessment component of the TPM data. Some high-level findings. I won't go into too much detail here. You'll have to come next week if you want to hear more. So analysis findings, agencies that met their target generally did perform better, not surprising, but there are caveats to that. So it doesn't always mean success the way you know, of course, which we're all aware of. There is an inconsistent but weak correlation between performance progress and more ambitious targets. Again, maybe it's not surprising because maybe if you're already performing better, you kind of set more ambitious targets and you were going to perform better anyway, but that relationship does exist. More ambitious targets was associated with better performance on a couple measures. There is an inconsistent and weak correlation between performance progress and inaccurate targets, meaning there was a reverse correlation, negative correlation between accuracy. So we were trying to look at, if states are more carefully forecasting their results, did they see better performance? Were they more grounded? And we found the opposite result. So it's hard to take away a lot from it because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This could have been driven a lot by huge reliability swings, which were hugely inaccurate and hugely positive. So maybe the next performance period is where we can dive in a little deeper on that. Another finding is just simply we did look at the target set for the second performance period. And yes, everyone is setting less ambitious targets pretty much across the board. That's the one finding we can make from the second period. On that metric assessment, looking at the measures and metrics and saying, are there tweaks that could be made? At a high level, reliability, non-motorized safety, and pavement measure and metric formulations could be improved. We won't go into the details. Come next week and we can talk about what those tweaks should be. Most TPM measures do capture unique aspects of performance. So we wanted to look at whether some of these measures were redundant, right? There's so many of them. There's one for poor pavement and good pavement, and interstate pavement and non-interstate, and freight reliability and passenger reliability. So we wanted to see, do we really need all of them, or could we simplify it down? But the statistical analysis shows that those really are capturing different aspects and phenomena on the roadways, and so that it is worth keeping all those measures. We tried to find ways to simplify, but they're all unique and worth having. We did a look at the detailed CMAQ public access system data to take a look at those measures. One thing we found is that less than half of CMAQ projects reported quantitative benefits, right? And quantitative benefits are the only ones that come through into the performance measure result for emissions reduction. And those emissions estimates varied very significantly across states. Even when we look at the same project types, there are different types of projects, and even when it is uh, brought down to normalized to a per dollar basis. So that wild, huge variability, I think is something that we do need to consider. Finally, that key contributor analysis, I think everyone here will not be surprised to hear that external factors did exert quite a strong and more pronounced association with performance outcomes than agency spending could be shown to do. Now, we could get more detailed agency spending that was just for the NHS if we got, tailored data from every agency. Maybe there's a different way you could do that. But hands down, no question that external factors are strongly associated with performance outcomes. The second major piece of our research, talking with all of you, engagement and outreach. We did interviews, we did focus groups, and we did surveys. We did it with performance practitioners, and we did it with technical experts. And across the board, we heard some things. TPM has benefits. It gave performance greater visibility. People like that. It was great. It has given greater consistency across the country. Someone said you can't do benchmarking unless you have consistent measures, better coordination, and really the data and tools. People have a lot of good things to say about the fact that there's an NPM RDS data set now that's available to everyone, and that these were great benefits that TPM has brought about. Of course, there are still challenges. The targets are still a challenge. There's an incentive to set low targets. Is it really worth setting precise targets? Reporting focused more around careful word choice than deep and natural exploration of results. We still don't understand performance. Performance outcomes are varied. External forces we just showed have a huge influence. Understanding that cause and effect is still something we need to work on as an industry, and that is a crucial component to the mechanisms of the TPM program. So that's something if you folks found still challenging and significant progress. Success can be hitting a conservative target. Is that what we want to do? So all this wrapped up data and insights from all of you into our national performance story. One huge, very important thing to say about this is that people want performance management, and specifically people see value in a national program overseen by the federal government. There is a place for this. Nobody wants this to disappear. There is a strong support for a national TPM program, and they're using this. Agencies are using this to develop and further their own performance efforts. So this is something that's very important. But the overall TPM story about this program, again, kind of reiterating a lot of those statements we heard, TPM has real benefits. It's raised the profile of performance. We want to keep doing that. We want the consistency. We want more data, improved agency coordination and communication. But those challenges remain. Targets are not seen as useful tools to drive and improve their performance. That significant progress lacks meaning. Reporting feels more performative than exploratory. And again, we still don't understand outcomes. And there's just there's too much complexity in the measures and the requirements. So there's a vision, a future TPM that could be simplified and streamlined. And it does not mean scrapping TPM. It does not mean tearing it down. It is simply tweaks. It could be fewer and simpler measures, be removing that significant progress determination to just focus on progress and discussion, reimagine reporting to encourage that exploration and honest reflection, re-engineer logistics to get rid of the complications and better align with other performance-based requirements and plans and reports and data availability. And really kind of thinking about what is the program's role, refocusing to really get at that data, the tools, the storytelling, and get at understanding what works in performance. That's where people really want the TPM program to provide effort if possible. And again, this is the story from the industry and from this research team. Quick look at the performance assessment tool. I'm not going to do a walkthrough now. You can come next week to our webinar to see a fuller walkthrough. These are just some of the visuals. What we did, we took that TPM data from the Federal Highways website. We have also developed a data transformation tool that we'll make available with the research so that anyone can download the data themselves or get new data and use the transformation tool to get it into a format that's much easier to process, and you can do your own analyses and ask questions. But the tool itself has that data processed, and you can look at a deep dive into your agency. You can look at trends over time. You can compare your state with other states, select peers for benchmarking. Lots of things you can look at there. But again, if you want to see more, I will be hosting a webinar next week on the TPM journey. It's going to be an hour where we will talk about all the things I presented here in more detail and share some of those nuances and information. And I think that's all. And if you haven't, I'll share the link to that registration page in a moment in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anna. This was really great to have the story of performance management over the last few years, so concise and all together, and look forward to the extended presentation next week. Finally, we'll receive an update on the Committee on Performance-Based Management's research roadmap, which was developed collaboratively with and presented by Francis Harrison of Spike Point Partners. So Francis, can I turn it over to you, please?
Yes, here we go. So this is a project that started in August, and it's nearing completion. We're hoping to finish at the end of the year. And the goal was to build a roadmap for the Committee on Performance-Based Management for research over the next 3 to 5 years. The roadmap is intended to define streams of research within the CPBM scope and align with the interest of each of the 4 topical subcommittees. The roadmap will include specific problem statements, but also it will have the flexibility to respond to emerging issues and priorities. The inputs to developing this roadmap, first of all, were the base of research candidates that have been suggested by through this committee over the past 10 years through symposia and other forums. So those were all analyzed, and also the research projects, the CRP projects that have been conducted over that same time period were looked at, noting which of the candidates had been addressed by projects. And also we reviewed reports that had been published and looked at the sections on recommended future research to be able to take that into account. We've also had a number of meetings with the CPBM leadership group and the subcommittee chairs. There were stakeholder engagement activities at the Baltimore conference in September, and there was a follow-up web survey, which some people responded to, and that was very helpful. So the overall development process started, as I said, with a review of the research and the candidates. From that, we developed a draft structure for the roadmap and some themes for each of the subcommittees. That went through a feedback process. There were some revisions made, and then we are right now kind of in that revised themes and ID gaps and needs and draft research roadmap without problem statements. Actually, we're at the draft research roadmap without problem statements stage, and that's about to go into a review and revision phase. We've got meetings with several of the subcommittees coming up next week, and then from that, we'll get priorities for problem statements, draft those, and that will be the final version, but we really view this as a living research roadmap that can adapt and can be contributed to, but at least it will be a single place that really says, what have we done in the past? What have people suggested in the past? And what are the main research themes that CPBM is about? The organization from the roadmap It has 6 main sections. The first one is just describing the scope of the overall committee and the 4 subcommittees. The second one just reviews how the CPBM research aligns with the overall AASHTO strategic plan. The third one has a very brief discussion of key trends that will impact future CPBM research. Then kind of the main substance of the research roadmap is the presentation of research themes and specific needs within those themes. Then there'll be a section with problem statements. We're anticipating 5 to 10 of those. And then there's an appendix that lists the projects that have happened over the past 10 years that are related to CPBM scope. And I'll just give a very quick overview of each of these sections. So the first one on scope just defines the scope of the committee and each of the subcommittees. There were drafts of that material in the briefing packages that were used at the Baltimore meeting, and those have been adjusted based on feedback. And then the second section on alignment with the AASHTO strategic plan. You see here excerpts from that plan. It has 5 main strategies. And so we looked at the 5 strategies and their associated catalyst and just identified the ways that CPBM research contributes to those strategies, and really found that CPBM contributes to all 5 of them in some way. The main one, though, was on policy implementation and research. That strategy emphasizes a safe and sustainable multimodal system. So we talk a little bit about how CPBM contributes in that area. And then we pulled out key themes from that analysis and just showed for the 4 different committees, which committee work really is addressing that theme. And you'll see that for 4 of the themes, it's really a cross-cutting activity. So connecting research to practice is a goal of the whole committee, as is continuous improvement, et cetera. So then moving to the trends section, there's a lot of words here, but there were trends identified in 5 key areas: governmental transition, social, demographic, and travel trends, technological innovation and new services, economic trends, and then energy and environmental trends. And I think the main takeaways were on governmental transition, the need for future CPBM research to align with widely held goals that can stand the test of time, and also the need to prepare us all to act in a highly uncertain environment across multiple dimensions. And then the technological advancement is another critical factor, particularly artificial intelligence, combined with expanding data streams that offer a lot of opportunities to inform and improve performance management. So research can really help with this process and also help with challenges associated with that. So moving on to the 4th section, which is research needs for each of the 4 subcommittees. Themes have been developed for each of the 4 subcommittees. Transportation asset management is the most, long-standing group, and so it had the most themes of all of the committees. But all of the research needs fit under one of the themes. I don't think I have time to go through them all, but we really tried to kind of segment main categories of research that's of interest, or that has been of interest and will continue to be of interest to the committees. Just quickly show the ones for risk management. There's 3 themes on characterizing threats, assessing risk, and communicating about risk and resilience, advancing risk analytics, and then integrating agency risk management processes. For emerging measures, we currently have 4 categories: safety and public health, access to opportunities, transportation system performance, and internal transportation agency performance management. And then for organizational management, we've got organizational models, efficiency and process improvements, and organizational change. So these are kind of the big buckets within research needs that can be formulated. So each research need follows a theme, but they are also associated with an overall research roadmap track. There are 4 tracks that kind of pull the whole thing together into a coherent framework for the whole committee. And so these are measuring and communicating what counts, and this is really about formulating performance measures, getting the right information, applying the right technologies and methods, and communicating results out. Second really is all about the decision-making aspect of performance management, making performance-driven, risk-based decisions, and collaboration enters into that one. Third one is about strengthening organizational capacity, so important to support effective performance management. It's about workforce capabilities, improving processes and structures, improving the culture. And then the final one is really an implementation-focused category to make sure that the roadmap really pays attention to leveraging available research and disseminates information. So that may include research-related activities like syntheses, scans, workshops, and peer exchanges. So for each research need, one of the main things that we did was identify potential collaborators. The scope of this committee is quite broad, and just by its very nature, it touches a lot of other areas. So this identifies some of the AASHTO committees and also the TRB committees that were named in at least one of the research needs in the roadmap. This is the template that the roadmap uses to identify the research needs. And I can have an example so that you can kind of see. This is the first page of the asset management one. And as you can see, the research needs are presented for the themes. In this case, that first theme, TAM performance measurement. This shows the first 3 of several research needs for this committee. There's a kind of bullet description of what's involved in that need. And where possible, we identified a specific prior or ongoing NCHRP or CRP project that research need really should build on. The next column has the track of the overall research roadmap. These ones happen to be in the first category of the second category of performance management. Then you can see the collaborators on the right. The problem statements, as I say, are to be developed. And then the appendix has a listing of many projects that have been done, as quite a good track record of research related to CPBM. And this was included just to make it convenient for people involved in the research process to review the relevant projects, go and look at those reports and make sure that future research that's proposed builds on the past and doesn't duplicate. So I tried to do that very quickly. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And you did a great job on that, Francis. Thank you so much again for all of the work to get us here. This was really a great undertaking, done relatively in a very compressed amount of time as well. So we really appreciate it. So any questions for Francis, please, start adding them in the chat as we're actually now. A big thank you to all 3 of our presenters, Shoshana, Anna, and Francis. And we're going to transition over to our business meeting for the next hour. And, we're going to start, since we just talked about research, we're going to start with that subcommittee on research, which is chaired by Edgardo Bloch from Connecticut DOT and Alma Mkanovich of the Georgia DOT. So, Edgardo and Alma.
Good afternoon, Christos, and thank you, Francis, for summarizing a lot of what has focused our attention over the past few weeks. through the Baltimore meeting into today and continuing forward. And it's very fortunate, or I want to say it's a credit to the way this is being done, that it will be useful as we meet in January at TRB, so we can communicate that to that community. And I also want um, to kind of report that in our previous efforts, so over the course of the year, what we've done is submit a set of research needs statements on time to be considered for the NCHRP process. So our symposia that many of you attended earlier in the year, and where you helped draft or review or provide an idea or highlight a challenge, um, you know, was not for naught. It was just not a conveyance of thoughts, but it actually got formulated into research needs statements. I don't have a listing of them at this exact moment, but they cover most of the areas of the CPBM, including asset management, emerging measures, organizational management, etc. So that's my quick update. And here are the
Yeah. Ed, we put them up
here are
there
the
for
topics.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the Creative Performance Management Blue Book actually was carried over from the previous year. It cuts across. We recognize that our discipline, as Anna mentioned, we don't want performance management to go away, but we also want to have some guidance as to for especially as new people come into the profession and into this field, that they have some guidance about the fundamentals and the key things that we have learned that can guide us moving forward. Improving analysis of demand for non-auto travel, strategies for addressing funding challenges in asset management guidance and framework for ancillary assets, developing workflows for digital project delivery to support asset management, a guide to identifying, assessing, and managing events for critical infrastructure resilience and surface transportation, a project that follows from the ongoing asset risk and resilience manual effort, which is one of the biggest NCHRP projects ever, 2332. And we have a member, William Johnson, who is a key participant in that effort. And then achieving Department of Transportation goals for public good outcomes through aligned capital investment and STIP programming performance measures. So all of these will show up for everybody in February at the state DOTs to support, to move forward into the NCHRP program, and we hope that you do that. The process that we have used is quite disciplined, and it tries to elicit all the needs that we can see at that moment in time, and informed by what we are doing throughout the year. And we hope that you support them, and we will remind you of that as ballot time comes around. Thank you.
Edgardo, thank you so much. Any questions for Edgardo, please enter them in the chat. We're going to move on with the subcommittee on policy and rulemaking, chaired by Ryan Huff of Nebraska DOT. And Ryan also serves as the secretary of the Committee on Performance-Based Management. Ryan?
Good afternoon, Christos. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's always a crapshoot when you switch virtual platforms, which microphone's going to work and which one won't. But appreciate the opportunity to talk this afternoon. We can go to the next slide. For my committee, we met just recently back in November to talk about a few different things that are happening policy-wise. But one of the things we talked a little bit about is that our current vice chair is stepping down, and we're looking to refill that position. I've talked with a lot of you in Baltimore, and some of you seemed interested in our committee, and hopefully that interest extends to taking up leadership roles. Some of you may be new to our group. We're constantly looking to add to our ranks. AASHTO is a great organization to build your peer network. And the Policy and Rulemaking Subcommittee is one that is a cross-cutting subcommittee, meaning that it supports all the committees. And so serving on this committee allows you to interact with most of the other committees. And so if you don't know much about our group, it's one that meets bi-monthly, like most groups, where we get together and we talk about different things that are happening in the policy and rulemaking space. Opening up a vice chair or even vice chairs positions is something we did a few years ago. We engaged in a process in which we received applications, did some interviews. Probably will engage in a similar type of process for that. When we look for people, we look for people that are willing to represent a balanced approach. AASHTO is a community of professionals that serves a wide variety of perspectives, and so sometimes we run into different political realities within our own organization. But as an AASHTO organization, we look for folks who are willing to look at the big picture and work towards a common good for most state DOTs. Basic qualifications: are you available? Are you engaged? That's about it. So we'll be pushing out some requests for applications here soon. Hopefully we'll get some of you to apply and hopefully make a decision to fill by March. I will just say that I've been inspired, by many of the other engaging with many of the other subcommittees. Many of them have, a deep bench, if you will, of chairs, vice chairs, secretaries, and whatever combination they have. And having that affords not only me or them to function, with greater capacity, but it also serves when you have people moving in and out of those leadership roles. People can quickly take up the mantle. So if that's of interest to you, we'll be on the lookout. Anxious to see who comes forward. We can go to the next slide. I'll blow through some of these things. You can, in fact, just advance to the next slide, Abigail, if you want. I gave a quick update on the DBE program in some recent meetings. I think we all know that it's been under. There's been some changes going on. There was a lawsuit filed in 2023, and in May, the USDOT moved to agree with the plaintiff on that lawsuit and work to amend DBE requirements. And so they did that. They created an interim final rule on the heels of our Baltimore meeting, and that subsequently created a lot of questions. And so that rule took effect already, and the commenting period has concluded. But after that, and this is the thing that made this, or the next thing I'm going to talk about may not be well known to you, is that they issued some frequently asked questions. If you want to go to the next slide. This information is also out of date because I learned within the last 3 days they've released additional guidance and FAQs on the DBE program update. And so if you're not in that world, it's one that affects a lot of our lettings and our what our contractors have to do. The context here is these changes may impact the performance of our lettings, the performance of our programs, and most certainly it's going to affect how our contractors organize themselves and their teams to bid on our projects. So with that in mind, most of what these updates represent are whether or not they be direct impacts, they definitely impact our business in some way, shape, or form. And the DBE program, this is a major shift in how things are done. The bullets you can see up here, you can read for yourself and can familiarize yourself with them after the meeting when they distribute the slides. But most of the questions, the FAQs, centered around, I just led a program or I just had a letting. What do I have to do to be compliant? And so these new FAQs that they keep publishing are meant to provide clarity on what to do with your thing. So we can move on to the next topic. I can blow through this. I covered government shutdown a bit back in Baltimore. This is a process that takes place every year. Authorization or funding authorization or appropriations happens every year by Congress. It gives permission to federal agencies to spend money from the U.S. Treasury. So This is required by Congress. They have to come together, create a unified appropriations package. They weren't able to do that. And so we entered a shutdown period. During that time, FHWA US DOT was, still functional because their appropriation comes from a different part of the law from reauthorization. But it doesn't mean that what happens to our agencies is nothing. There's definitely a lot of indirect impacts. I find the process itself fascinating. Paying attention to it may seem a little bland, but when you get down into it, understanding the political motivations on Capitol Hill, what's happening, all of these things will in some way, directly or indirectly, impact future discussions on reauthorization and just our industry in general. When the shutdown occurs, it has indirect impacts on our projects. Nothing new can start. There are no new obligations. We can lose momentum if we have to rely on approvals or partnerships that are tied up in the shutdown. Our contractors bid on uncertainty related to shutdown, and so we see bigger bids. All in all, these things don't have no impact on state DOTs. They definitely create an impact, and so they have what they're calling a continuing resolution through January 30th. And before then, they need to take up this FY26 appropriation question, and if they don't, we could be faced with another shutdown. And so these things, aside from the things I've talked about, essentially distract from reauthorization. This is what we're focused on. IIJA is funded through FY26, and which means we need a new bill or some other means to fund what we do. And so, as Christos put in the chat, reauthorization, if and when it comes, will create a lot of new activity for our subcommittee, and that could be another motivating factor for adding vice chairs. But don't let that scare you. I did hear this is kind of a fun tidbit. Someone from my office came back from their Thanksgiving dinner, and they said my cousin serves as an aide to insert like prominent name in transportation on the Hill in the House. And they think they're going to have a reauthorization bill done by spring. So I was like, okay, and I feel like that's optimistic, but glad to hear it. So it could be coming sooner despite all these things with continuing resolution appropriation. So we can keep going. I'm trying to get through these as quick as we can. You can go to the next slide. I just wanted to point out here that there's been a lot of activity being performed around the trucking industry. Last time in Baltimore, I think I talked about English language proficiency rules being issued. There is a new interim rule on this, what's called a non-domiciled CDL. And what that essentially does is give people who don't live here in our that are authorized to work in the U.S. a CDL. And so the US DOT and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration issued this rule in an attempt to clean up some of the practices and or issues that they feel are creating safety problems in the trucking industry. Those things have been challenged, like most things lately, through lawsuits. But I will say, if you go to the next slide, those challenges were taken up by the U.S. Court of Appeals, and they have put a pause on that interim rule. So, the only reason I bring this up is that trucking industry is the backbone of our economy, of our freight movements. All of these things affect the performance of our system, the way it operates. Tariffs, for example, can shift travel patterns from the West Coast to the Gulf Coast and so on and so forth. And so, whether or not this impacts us directly, it definitely will impact long-term performance of our system and how we manage it. So knowing what's happening and when these things are going to start taking effect could give us insights into, I guess what I'd call inflection points in performance. So we can go to the next slide. This one's interesting. This one we've been talking about for a long time. Back in the spring, the U.S. Secretary issued a letter to all the states saying, if you want a discretionary grant, you're going to sign agreements in which you are complying with immigration enforcement activities. Those things were taken up through a lawsuit. Many states sued to block this. If you want to move to the next slide, on the 4th of November, a judge, go to the next one, yeah, a U.S. District Court judge granted a summary judgment saying that the imposition of immigration enforcement conditions on all federal transportation grants is unlawful. And so, when you read that on the surface, you're just like, all right, so what does that mean? Well, it oftentimes when there's some sort of ruling, the parties that sue, receive the benefits of the judgment. And in this case, this judgment extends to every state, so even non-disputing states that didn't sue. And so effectively, the judgment stated that the U.S. DOT is effectively prohibited from implementing or enforcing any sort of IEC moving forward when it comes to transportation grants. So, whether that means something to you or not, it just means that we won't have to deal with that when it comes to discretionary grants. And in fact, I've seen some trade groups already reporting that FTA is removing these from their grant agreements. So we can move on to the last topic, waters of the U.S. This was something that was issued mid-month last month. Definitely will have an impact on the performance of our program and our project delivery processes. I think that we know that obtaining clean water permits is something that we have to do and is part of the law. It's part of the Clean Water Act. But in this particular situation, EPA and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers issued a new rule that is meant to sort of coincide and support a Supreme Court decision from 2023 that ruled on what is considered waters of the U.S. And so, the bottom line here is that it could substantially reduce the number of transportation projects requiring a federal Clean Water Act permit. So, there's obviously probably some challenges coming on this. A lot of the opponents are stating that this will undermine a lot of the substance of the Clean Water Act. But more to come on that. The EPA is taking comment on this through January 5th. If you or your organization has interest, definitely something that could impact how we perform as state DOTs. So that is the end of my update. I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
Questions in the chat.
Oh, questions in the chat. I'm too focused to look at the chat.
No, there's no questions in the chat
Okay.
right now, but I mean for people to ask. Ryan, thank you so much. As I also put in the chat, this is a big commitment, but it's a commitment for work that we actually see as critically important, and I hope everybody else sees it as exciting work. Working on policy and rulemaking. What we have been preaching for the last few years is that bad policy is really easy to make, but almost impossible to get it undone once it's being made. And the reason behind the policy and rulemaking subcommittee is really to make sure that our voice of all 50 state DOTs, even when we disagree on approaches, it's heard. So with that, thank you again, Ryan. I'm going to move over to Subcommittee on Organizational Excellence, previously known as Organizational Management and officially renamed now as Organizational Excellence, and turn it over to Gary Rinsach from Colorado DOT and the Vice Chairs Jihan El-Syed of West Virginia DOT and David Patz from Iowa DOT. Gary?
Yeah, Christos, thank you for that introduction. And everybody, thank you. Christos introduced us as the Subcommittee on Organizational Excellence. I've kept a few slides on the Subcommittee on Organizational Management. Oh gosh, why is that? Well, I'm going to take a bit of an aside, but I'm going to come back around to the key point here. Many of you know I love to support the home team. Here in Denver, we have some terrific home teams. Now, the Colorado Rockies in baseball, we always hope for the best for next year. Denver Broncos, almost inexplicably 10-2, eat your heart out, Chicago. Our Colorado Avalanche, oh gosh, they're the NHL leaders right now. They're having another terrific year. And I'm wearing the tie of our Denver Nuggets. Our Denver Nuggets are 15-6. They're in the hunt. If I were talking to you 52 years ago, I wouldn't be talking about the Denver Nuggets. I'd be talking about the Denver Rockets. The Denver Rockets. And they were the Denver Rockets of the old American Basketball Association, the ABA. The ABA merged with the NBA in 1974. And guess what? There was already a team called the Rockets, the Houston Rockets. So Denver took this wonderful opportunity to say, gosh, maybe Rockets wasn't a great name to begin with. Apologies to everybody in Houston, by the way. And they actually got something that's more Colorado-based, more reflective of the culture here in Colorado, the Denver Nuggets. Well, we've been doing something very similar with the Subcommittee on Organizational Management. Now, the Subcommittee on Organizational Management's been around a while. The focus of the subcommittee was the development and implementation of organizational performance measures, processes, improvement frameworks, strategies, to help effectiveness and efficiency. Well, that's good, but from time to time, just like the Denver Rockets converting to the Denver Nuggets, you got to take some data. You got to say, gosh, is there a way that we can actually make this better? So Abigail, next. We gathered for the Committee on Performance-Based Management annual meeting. We had a subcommittee meeting, a terrific workshop. Thank you to everybody that was there, and thank you to our Spy Pond partners who helped us with this. We wanted to put facts and data and evidence in front of folks. Big shout out to Dave Putz, who put together a wonderful survey, and we've had a couple of follow-up surveys on that about greatest agency challenges. After all, AASHTO is supposed to be working with its 52 member agencies to make progress in various areas. And in organizational management, we asked them a bunch of questions about where are those key items. And you can see here, data management, change management, culture, prioritization, organizational alignment. In Abigail, if you go next, and we actually took that data and some follow-up items and did some synthesis of that to say, gosh, we are looking at organizational constraints, leadership, change management challenges, data management challenges, and where should we go with the future? So Abigail, if you go next, we had this wonderful session, again, facilitated by our friends from Spy Pond Partners to say, how do we transition to the future? How do we identify the most impactful initiatives? And how can our subcommittee help? One of the things coming out of that was a set of terrific brainstorm ideas and consensus to actually change the branding of the committee and slightly change the missioning. So Abigail, if you go next. Just like that transition from the Denver Rockets to the Denver Nuggets, we are transitioning from the Organizational Management Subcommittee to focusing on organizational excellence. A lot of the things from the past, but also a lot of things that we were able to look at in Baltimore and other places in terms of places that agencies, the 52 agencies making up AASHTO, say are important. So the Organizational Excellence Subcommittee will focus on the coordination among state-level transportation agencies, all of us here, on the implications of long-range external and internal issues and trends for innovation, operational improvement, strategic planning and decision-making, and organizational excellence. Next. Now, as part of that, we're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Some terrific stuff done in the past that organizational management has been engaged with. We were a key promoter of building the agency capability building portal, the ACP portal. Many of you use that. We will continue to support and promote that. Abigail, next. And that includes using ABC for activating organizational change. You've probably seen this recently from a TPM email. This is coming out just this month, and a terrific addition onto this NCHRP research that helped us with the ACP portal. and to help all of our agencies. So we're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we are going to be doing some things related to the data that was gathered through the surveys and all of those of you who have participated in sessions in the past. Abigail, next. And we're pulling all that up next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, it's our transitional planning meeting to go from organizational management to organizational excellence, get some things on the calendar, get some tools in place in addition to the ACB portal that can help all the agencies. I am available for any questions you might have right now related to that. I don't see anything in the chat pane. Christos, if you do have questions, put them in the chat pane. And again, Lori from SpyPond, thank you for putting in the ACB portal link. Christos, I'll turn it back to you.
Gary, thank you so much. And again, great work by everybody to get us where we are. And we can move on to the task force on emerging performance area and chaired by Kelly Travelby of Michigan DOT. And Kelly is also on the look for a vice chair.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi. So we're going to take an abbreviated look back at where the task force has been. Some research proposals that we submitted in 2024 were funded, and they are currently moving through the contracting process. Once that is complete, they're going to take about 24 months, and we'll be keeping a close eye on these as they move forward. That's looking at developing a guide to assess, measure, and communicate public value, and guiding to measure community mobility and resilience. Unfortunately, one of our projects was terminated. Thankfully, there are a number of existing projects that are going to keep research in the greenhouse gas space related to transportation moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on those as well. Abigail, please. Thank you. This year we have, this is moving through internally, still through AASHTO for consideration and approval. Edgardo had commented it was in part of that list. Achieving DOT strategic goals to improve our user benefit outcomes through aligned capital investment and STIP programming performance measures. Boy, that is a lot to say all at once, but we are really excited about this project, and hopefully it continues to move forward. And eventually we'll be looking for some folks to sit on the panel. So keep an eye on that if it sounds interesting to you. As Francis had commented, as part of the research roadmap initiative, we have identified some proposed themes for the emerging performance task force. Those include safety and public health, access to opportunities, goods movement, energy and telecommunications, and DOT internal performance. The task force is taking kind of a final look and thinking about actually what we're going to probably talk about on the next slide, and making sure that really is going to fit our future needs. But I think we're on a great path forward. So, Abigail, thank you. In the last couple of years, our task force has more strategically focused on accessibility, climate, and equity. And when we set those objectives, they aligned with kind of the mission and the goals of our task force. We said, hey, we're going to, kind of focus on these things for 2 to 3 years, and it's been about that time frame. And so at the Baltimore annual meeting, we did a similar tabletop exercise to what Gary was talking about. And from that, aligned with our 4 primary goals, which include being a practitioner forum, building capacity, advancing research, and, with CPBM being a cross-sectional committee, definitely working in cross collaboration with other AASHTO and TRB partners. So in alignment with those, there was actually kind of 17 high impact, high visibility individual ideas generated. They were consolidated. These are like your high impact, quick wins. Then there were another 10 ideas generated that are like high impact, but they're those longer strategic vision implementation kind of ideas. So in total, about 27 of those high impact ideas. We need to probably, refine that list a little bit. So the task force, unfortunately, not all the members of the task force were able to join us in Baltimore. So we introduced a lot of that at our last meeting, provided some documentation. And at our next meeting, we're really going to kind of start honing in on those focus areas. We'll be prioritizing them. I think the next Abigail, thank you. So kind of our next step is we're really looking at that summary. We're going to further refine. We're going to identify, what potential outputs we're looking for, and we are definitely looking for folks to lead those. Basically, generated ideas. What kind of timelines we're looking at, and what other resources we may need. So really looking forward to our next meeting and getting us set in for our next couple of years, which is really exciting. So if you are interested, our next meeting is January 7th. Most of our meetings, we meet the first Wednesday of every other month at 2 p.m. We really try to stick to that schedule. Unfortunately, January 7th, we had to move it off about 30 minutes. So we'll be meeting at 2:30 on January 7th, and you can find information on the TPM portal or reach out to John Dean, and he'll make sure that you get our appointments. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And again, any questions for Kelly, enter them into the chat. We'll move on to the subcommittee on risk management, which is co-chaired by Nathan Lee of Utah DOT and William Johnson from Colorado DOT, with Monica Almond-Smoot from Texas DOT and Claire Martini from Colorado DOT as well. So I'll turn it over to you, William and Nathan.
Is Nathan on the call?
No. So William. William and Tim.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if Nathan wanted to say anything.
I don't see him on the attendee list.
Yeah, no problem. Couple of things that we did during the in-person meeting that we were reporting on is that we did submit 2 research needs statements, one dealing on a guide for identifying managing critical infrastructure, and the other one was a continuation of the NCHRP 2332 project. Over the year, we've convened 6 meetings. Again, we do that every other month, with the next one coming up next Monday. If you're interested, I put the link there to get access to it. And then we had 4 guest speakers over the year. We developed a new strategic plan at the in-person meeting in Baltimore. We decided to add a new strategy dealing with resilience. And so we'll have a little bit more focus on that within our strategic plan. And that plan is to guide our activities over the next 3 to 5 years. And then we have that list of products that we identified at the in-person meeting that would assist DOTs. And I believe the 2 top ones there dealt with reducing asset management plans and the resilience improvement plans, and harvesting information that we think would be useful for DOTs, things like performance measures, how they're spending their protect funds, either through infrastructure or planning activities, so on. Last thing is, we'll be saying farewell to Nathan Lee as co-chair of SRM this month. He is going to be retiring No idea what he's gonna do, but if you've ever sat down with Nathan and he showed you some of his cell phone pictures, he's a big sailboarder. And so maybe he'll be out there on the beach, hopefully not crashed on his sailboard. Next slide, please. At the in-person meeting, I had the opportunity to give an update on the NCHP 2332 project. And as far as that goes, there's going to be our final workshop scheduled for February of next year. And we're working towards developing a game plan for review of the chapter. And Christos, that may be something that you and I will need to talk about in a separate meeting later, because I know that you wanted to have greater ownership of final projects from the CPBM community, if not just leadership. Of course, you'll have me reading it, but we've also I expect it to be some pretty sizable documents, so I don't want to overwhelm people, and that's part of the game plan. Another change, just so people are aware of it, is we went into 2332 alongside CTSSR, that's AASHTO's Committee on Transportation System Security and Resilience. I chair the task force that's supporting this project on behalf of CPBM. We have brought along Stephanie Johnson with Delaware from the CTSSR side to be the vice chair of that activity. One thing I wanted people to be aware of, and I know I've talked to this a number of times, is resilience is still very much a thing. And thank you, Lori, for attaching that executive order there. Is if you just do a cursory search on that, the term resilience appears in there, I believe, 17 times. Some of the products that we're looking at from that deal with the national security, or sorry, there's supposed to be a national policy on risk, as well as a national risk register that I believe was supposed to be completed last month. I have not seen any of those documents just yet. But from that executive order, you really get a sense that they are looking at resilience as being an outcome of risk management. So if, in case people are worried, or in case you've heard chatter from other outside groups about resilience or risk, yeah, it's there within this current administration. I'd say the other thing that you'll see from that executive order is that there's very much a sense from the emergency management community, as well as national security agencies, that states are going to have to take more control over their risk and resilience destinies. And you can look at that from the lens of they really want to limit the amount of emergency funds that the feds are going to be covering, and really look towards states to cover for when things go wrong. And that makes risk and resilience even more important. I think that the 2332 project sort of exemplifies the correct steps to approach resilience and being proactive sense and trying to reduce the amount of events that cause damage. And there will be a workshop at Tier B if you have an opportunity to go, where it's focused on 2332. And we're trying to get something rolling for 2027, really when we expect the guide to go into publication and reach a point where we'll want to promulgate it and really teach people how to use it. So be on the lookout for all those activities. Next slide, please. I mentioned this before, some of the work products that were discussed at the annual meeting that the subcommittee is going to be taking on is the summarization of the TAMPs and RIPs. Also, one thing that I will be talking about in a later slide here is a focus on risk and resilience performance measures. I know in probably the last 3 national meetings I've been in, somebody has asked about resilience or risk performance measures. So I'm hoping that that NCHP report 1159 will give you some insight. Next slide, please. If you're interested in 2332, thanks, Lori, you're beating me. I've got all the control V's set up on this, but thank you, I appreciate it. So I don't have to do dual wielding on the mouse and keypad. 2332, the QR code will take you to the TAR manual website that we have set up. Again, I anticipate that the February subcommittee on risk management meeting, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about the game plan for reviewing the chapters that will be coming out. And my desire is to really have a schedule for what that is. It'll be focused on people who are involved with the task force as well as the 2332 panel. But again, let me have a conversation with Christos. And if other people are wanting to get involved or see a snapshot, I would say there is no harm in emailing me and just, put yourself on my radar. So if I'm able to distribute those draft chapters a little bit broader, I'll be able to include you. Next slide, please. I want to give credit to Cecile Indracanti from Cambridge Systematics. He did give a presentation on 2326 later last month. And thanks, Matt. I see you. And what this is measuring impacts and performance of state DOT resilience efforts. Some quick notes on this. There were 3 major products that came out of this. One is, hey, the answer to what are those resilience performance measures? There is a listing of those performance measures, what they mean, how they could be applied. There's a guide that offers that step-by-step, the process-driven guidance on how agencies are using them and how your agency can use them. It uses the strategic implementation model. And then there is the resilience performance measure templates that teaches you how to collect and calculate for those resilience performance measures. So it's everything from just here we're reporting out to also here's how agencies are using those to affect performance and gain resilience within their agencies. Next slide, please. And I think it was posted earlier that these slides will go out. Embedded within these slides are the links to the documents, and it's a bundle package. It's not just the 1159 report. When you go to those links, you could get all those copies, the resilience performance measures, the templates, also the web-only documents that talks more specifically on case studies of the resilience efforts. And again, I encourage you to contact Cecile if you're looking for more information on that. And I think we should be able to post some hyperlinks up on the ERM portal to, get more of that information out to people. Want to make it quick, see the time's dwindling. Any questions, let me know.
William, thank you so much. And yes, absolutely, we'll schedule time to talk about this. I see in the chat you already got at least one volunteer.
That's always eager.
Which is really great to see. I'll save our thanks and great appreciation to all of the work that Nate has been doing over the last few years for the end. And I'll turn it over to the Subcommittee on Asset Management and Mike Johnson from California DOT and Justin Bruner from Pennsylvania DOT. Mike?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Christos. The Subcommittee on Asset Management was very busy over the summer. We hosted a national conference in Chicago, Illinois and a national peer exchange. And before I jump into our agenda today, just wanted to let everybody know that all of that material is now available on the TAN portal. That includes all the presentations, as well as all the state videos that were recorded as part of the peer exchange. So if you're looking for that, it's already up there. You can look at TAN portal and look for the peer exchange or conference material. As far as things that we're looking forward to doing, one of the activities that we initiated some time ago and is just recently sort of come to light, and that is to develop an AASHTO asset management certification program in the United States. And so the subcommittee is working with AASHTO, that's two A's, sorry about the slide, and Federal Highways to develop this certification program. We envision it to be self-paced and asynchronous and virtual. So one of the primary motivators behind trying to put this training program together is recognition that we have people coming in and out of asset management for various reasons, and there's perpetually a need to get new new folks up to speed, and there really wasn't a very there wasn't a really great program for that. There are international programs that do this, like through IAM and others, but they have a much more of a European flair, and they don't have a lot of the things that are specific here in the United States that we have. So anyway, we've got a good team. We have been planning to have some different levels to this training, meaning we've talked about it as, something similar to like how Lean 6 has the belt colors or something like that. But basically, you could have a very, cursory certificate for an hour or two overview of asset management, and then progress all the way down to significantly more detail for practitioners. So we're looking forward to that as we go through this coming year. The subcommittee will probably be reaching out to some of our subcommittee members to participate as part of the subject matter expert team that's working on this training. So that's the certification training. I wanted to just touch a little bit on the national conference. I mentioned we had one over the summer. That's the good news. The bad news is that was the last one under the prior pooled fund project. And for many years, Iowa DOT and Matt Hobrick had taken the lead. I think they're really the only agency that ever had the lead of that national pooled fund project. But that pooled fund project actually provided the funding that was necessary, along with AASHTO and Federal Highways. But it took really all three sources of that funding to put the national conference together. And so with Iowa backing out of that, we are still looking for potential pooled fund lead states that would be willing to sort of take up the mantle from Iowa DOT. So at the end of this presentation, I'll show you some contact information for myself and maybe more importantly for Justin. And if you think your agency might be interested in that, please reach out to one of us, and we'd love to have a conversation about how we can make that happen. Without that, future national conferences could be in jeopardy. So we're really trying to find someone that's going to step up. And then finally for the subcommittee, just want to talk a little bit about leadership. This will be my last CPBM meeting as the chair of the subcommittee on asset management. I will be retiring at the end of this month, and I certainly have appreciated all the time that I've had working with AASHTO, both in the bridge circles as well as now in asset management and CPBM. And so as I finish up my last month as chair, I feel really good knowing that Justin's my vice chair. I mean, I pretty much hand selected him from across the country based on his demonstrated leadership skills, and I think the subcommittee will be in great hands going forward. Next slide, please, Abigail. So as I mentioned, we do have one more subcommittee meeting. It's coming up next week. So hope you can join us for that. And then we have an ongoing TAN webinar series. It's on the portal. Please check that out. If you want to get information about the subcommittee in our calendar, it's also on the TAN portal. And again, if you want to reach out to me, you've got a few more weeks to do that, but probably more importantly, make note of Justin's contact information going forward. So with that, Christos, I'll turn it back over to you.
Mike, thank you so much both for the update today. I cannot, on behalf of all of us, not just myself, we cannot thank you and Nate enough for all of the work that you have done the last few years, for all of the commitment that you have given, the subcommittee on risk management in Nate's case and the subcommittee on asset management in your case, for your leadership, for your support of everything that we have done. This is, both of you have been exemplary leaders, and, we've advanced, a lot of our initiatives under the subcommittees before because of the work and that you have put in it and your leadership. On behalf of all of us, great appreciation to both of you for your work. I hope that, post-retirement, you'll always be a member of this family, because we never, once we put our clothes into someone, we never take them out. You'll always be a part of this, family of asset management and risk management and committee on performance-based management. So both of you have done a great job in cultivating talent within the subcommittees. And as you know, in the last meeting of the leadership committee, we did take action to elevate Justin after January 1st as the new chair of the subcommittee, and we will be working with Justin to identify individuals to bring in as to fill in the great void that you're going to leave. But like you said, both of the subcommittees are being left in really good hands. So, and I hope we have a chance that we are going to be in San Diego, for our meeting of the Committee on Performance-Based Management, and to have a chance to see you there as well. So I think we're not out of time, so I do have enough time to to thank everyone and for the presentations today. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll make sure that our presenters and our subcommittee leadership sees them and respond to them appropriately. And and we like to thank our partners in Latoya and her team for being here. We really couldn't do it without you. Jean and Ryan, it's our vice chair and secretary, and the AASHTO team of Anna, Abigail, and John. And very importantly, and I'm going to turn it over to Lori to recap our action items, to thank SpyPump Partners and Lori for her support. So, Lori?
Thank you, Christos. All right, so there were a lot of updates today. So I will try to get through all of the action items here. I would just mention, though, that all of the links that I put in the chat today, you will be able to find those after the webinar today, after the meeting today on the TPM portal, tpm-portal.com, and at the event page for this event. So we did hear an update from LaToya Johnson from FHWA. She mentioned that this is a big year for asset management, 2026 coming up. Both the full and the baseline reports will be due. Next, again, make sure to see the TPM portal for the CPBM meeting materials, including slides and links. Register, so then Anna provided an update from AASHTO. She had a couple of action items. One, to go out and register for Datapalooza coming up, and also to check out the TPM Peer Exchange summary report. Also, then Shoshana Thompson from TRB talked about what to expect at the 2026 TRB annual meeting. And so we hope that if you haven't already registered, that you will go out and register to attend that, and we hope to see you there. Also, make sure to sign up to be a friend of any of the TRB standing committees that are of interest to you. Next, we heard from Anna Batista from High Street Consulting. She provided an update on NCHRP 08168 assessment of national TPM. Make sure to register for the webinar coming up on December 11th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We heard from Frances Harrison from Spy Pond Partners about the AASHTO CPBM research roadmap. There was a link provided to the briefing documents for each of the subcommittees, the CPBM subcommittees. Feel free to go out and check those out. We provided a number of links from policy and rulemaking. Also, just a reminder that Policy and Rulemaking Subcommittee is looking for a new vice chair. In general, contact any of the subcommittees if you're interested in participating on any of them. Also, see the TPM portal for information about meetings, or contact John Dean at AASHTO, jdean@aashto.org, and he will extend those meeting appointments to you. We also heard to check out the Transportation Asset Risk and Resilience Manual webpage for information and updates on the progress of NCHRP 2332. And check out the links that William provided and we provided in the chat related to NCHRP 2326. And finally, make sure to sign up for those TAM and TPM webinars, tpm-portal.com for TPM webinars, tam-portal.com for those TAM webinars. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Christos, to wrap us up.
Thank you, Lori. And talking about the TAM webinars, there is one coming up on December 17th from 2 to 3:30, and it will highlight unique approaches and emerging trends in TAM development through feature presentations from select states, followed by a facilitated discussion with all the participants. Again, a big thank you to Anna, to Francis, and Shoshana for their presentations. Before we close, I'd like to turn it over to our Vice Chair, Jean, for last thoughts, as we're seeing some of our friends, abandoning us. I feel so abandoned right now today.
Thanks, everybody. A very full agenda. Thanks to all of our presenters, and thanks for all of the updates today. And I'm sure I'm just repeating everything you just said, Christos, but wish everyone happy holidays, however you celebrate, as we wrap up this year. See you again next year.
Yes. May you have a great December, full of holiday cheers, but very importantly, very safe. All right. Looking forward to seeing a lot of you at TRB. If not, we'll see you in the new year. So thank you, everyone. And, great end to our year.